The last one I got in honor of one of our favorite viewers who is a Wedgwood aficionado.
Hi, I'm George the Antique Nomad. Come with me as I wander the country in search of valuable vintage, amazing antiques, and cool collectibles. We'll buy, sell, and trade at antique malls, shops, and shows, estate sales, flea markets, thrift stores, anywhere people go to find really interesting things that just aren't made anymore. So come on, let's go!
Hey everybody, it's George the Antique Nomad, and I am preparing for the Florida Antique Show season, which starts New Year's weekend at the West Palm Beach Antique Fest. If you are in Florida, come see me in West Palm Beach. It's a lot of fun. It's a good show. There's a lot of dealers and people come from all over the country to both sell and attend it in the wintertime. So it will be a blast. Thought it would be fun to assemble a haul that I just got because I got some really great stuff and I want to show everybody. I'm getting ready for the West Palm Beach Antique Fest. It'll be the first show of the winter season in Florida, and I'm really excited to be able to present some really cool things. I just got at the last minute. I always try to find things right before a show, especially interesting things, and I really lucked out because I had a call from a couple. They are downsizing, so here's some of the things that I got. The Sadler teapot you see is Hamlet, and this is part of the Shakespeare series. Of course, we all know Shakespeare. Things shaped like houses. They did a whole bunch of neat novelty teapots in the 1980s and early 90s particularly. And this one is going to probably sell in the $30 range, as is this one now about the same time. This is 1990s also, so it is technically vintage by Etsy standards. This is something to talk about because it was made in Thailand. But there is some good Thai porcelain and pottery. However, the design, of course, is Picasso. A very famous bunch of flowers that he painted called Hands and Flowers, and it was in 1958, as you can see here. This is called Masterpieces Editions Limited. They took the market from companies like Sadler, and so there's a tale of two teapots. They both will sell for about $30 each. I did get some Wedgwood, and there's a fun piece in here too. This one is the oldest and most stately. It has the Made in England mark. It is the jasperware. You have to be careful not to drop the handle hard. I should have actually been a little more gracious about that because you don't want to chip. You can already tell there's a little bit of a mark from it having rubbed there over the years. But this is an old piece with this sort of a dull finish on the top, almost a nickel finish, and this bronze. This means that this should date to somewhere right around the turn of the last century. I estimate that the price is going to be $100 to $125, and I sell these pretty regularly in West Palm, so that was good timing. I took some of the more recent pieces just because I always think the compotes are nicely done in the queensware. I like this particular color scheme for these, and people always seem to be able to use little pedestal dishes. I think I only paid $10 or $12 for that. I didn't pay much at all for the Olympic because most of the Olympics are considered pretty common souvenir pieces at this point, but this one is from Moscow in 1980, and these are the Olympics the United States boycotted. So there's a little bit of collector interest here around that. And then the last one I got in honor of one of our favorite viewers who is a Wedgwood aficionado. I'm sure he already has this piece. If not, I'm sure he'll let me know. But it is a kiwi in honor of New Zealand. So Wedgwood made a nice little kiwi tray. And I haven't had the kiwi tray before, so I thought that was fun. I think I paid all of $4 or $5 for that. Now, next we're going to get into fanciness for women. And boy, there is some here. This little black bag with the gathering here. It's a reticule. It's when we're going out of the Victorian era into the flapper era, probably about 1925 with that Chinese red in it. It's very cute. It'll sell somewhere in the $65 to $85 range. The rest I'm going to show you should sell in the $125 to $150 range. This one is Whiting and Davis, marked inside the frame. When you open here, you would see it. This one is a late Victorian or early Edwardian reticule because of the dark color, but it's just great. It's got all that fringe and tasseling. And then these three are quite phenomenal because they're just so vibrant. They're all woven bead. The colors are just great. I like the one on the lower left because it actually puts me in mind of a Turkish carpet. The colors are just so much fun. These are going to be late 1920s, and they should sell in the $125 to $150 range. And one of them is being held by the dog, accompanied by this lovely chalkware lady from the 1940s. She should be worth $50 to $60 typically. And then next to her, this is maybe my favorite thing out of this whole pick. This silken lamp with this just incredible fringe shade. Now, a lot of people make fun of Dr. Lori because she wears her little white gloves, but you know, she's not wrong. When you're touching this era of silk and fabrics, we're just lucky they didn't use weighted silk because it would be falling apart. So you want to be really careful with these. They probably should be handled with cotton gloves if you're going to brush out that fringe very delicately with your fingers, which I intend to do. So I'm not going to touch it right now. The thing I think is so great about this is it has an early Depression glass pink base. I thought it was just a plain clear glass base because I couldn't see it in the room that it was sitting in when I bought it. I believe this is worth a few $100s easily just because of that shade. And then I've got some things that definitely speak to a certain type of person interested in the arts. And this family definitely had that. The Ballet Russe programs are pretty cool. The one in the back was a freebie because it has a tear, but it's still interesting. But this one, which is in better condition, notice they call it the Ballet Russe de Monte Carlo, and part of the reason for that is because, well, 1950 to 51, we are trying to not emphasize the fact that the Russians are somehow involved with ballet because we're not getting along with them very well. And yet, we have this wonderful performance that we need to do. So it's really well illustrated. It's quite pretty. It's something that my mother would have likely loved at a younger age. She was into ballet about this time. These sell surprisingly well. I think they go for about $25 to $30 each. And when you're going to the ballet, of course, you have to have a high fashion hat. We'll put that one to the side for a moment. The one on the right is late 50s, maybe even early 60s with the big feather, but I got it because it came with this extra adornment. People would pin things on hats, but these glass beaded flowers are quite a bit older than the hat. I believe these are maybe 1920s or 30s era, and so they have a value of their own, and that's why I went ahead and bought these 3 hats. There was also an extra one. You can see someone really liked that idea and they pinned it on that hat. And they had an extra tassel that they left here. And then this one. Look at the feather fascinators. Just all over the place. I mean, that is just really, really, really fun, in my opinion. That's going to be late 30s, early 40s. That one will be really fun to try to keep from damaging. The feathers with my tousled hair would be quite a scary sight. I'm sure this isn't much better, but a little more my style, I suppose. I have some viewers who are interested in art. I actually found a third book that I put aside for a viewer. They're good tutorials, and they have really good pages that you can frame. This is called Abrams Art Book. Abrams books sell for, again, about $25 to $30. They have great information about the artist. They're talking about how Toulouse-Lautrec gave up interplay of light to change his style, and they go all through the artist's history. And these book plates are made in a way that this can be easily taken apart. That was the intent when this was new. And they also have tip-ins like this, as you see. Here's the Moulin Rouge. That woman looks quite stern. She looks like she's not letting that other woman by. I am going to knock you down. This is in the Moulin des Gazettes in a corner. He definitely captured a certain air with these women, but they're all tip-ins, so they can all be framed, and that's why these books do well. Oh, let's show the last one, because this is perfect with New Year's coming up. That looks like some revelry going on there. So Abrams art books are definitely something to look for, and I have on go as well. Art seems to sell well in West Palm Beach, and I have some really good pieces to take, so I'm hoping that this will just add to that feeling. Now, a different kind of art is African art. I believe this is the Dan, D-A-N culture that did this particular mask, and I do think it has some age. Those trade beads look older to me. It was represented to the people who bought this that it had some age. Of course, a lot of these were still done for tourists, but nowadays that could be 70 or 80 years ago. Very expressive. I put the piece up to my head, and the eyes are in the right place to actually be functional in ceremony. So it's possible this was used. It probably is a tourist piece, but it is a good mask, and masks are popular right now. I think this could be worth a few $100s at least. This is tramp art, and I really like the form. You would put pictures or little mirrors in there. I may go ahead and put glass in it and maybe find a picture or two, or put a few little mirrors in if I can get them cut in time. But meanwhile, we've got this interesting gravel done in geometry, and then you've got matchsticks as the pavement. Sort of interesting because a lot of people are doing that with old pieces of furniture using yardsticks now rather than refinishing something. But you can see the design was really thought through. Whoever did this spent a lot of time. The Demaloon poles here tell us that even though the rest of the form looks like 1910s, this is probably closer to 1930s, 40s in terms of date. It even has a little felted area where you could... I'm not sure what you're supposed to do with that, honestly. It's not very clear. I don't know if it was a caddy to rest something. There's a place you can put your finger. Maybe you put an ashtray in there, knowing people back then. Who knows? But it's cute. The drawers work. I think this is worth $100 plus, just because it's interesting and it's one of a kind. I do like things that are one of a kind. These are old child-sized moccasins. Now, they came with this paper stuffed in them. I'm now going to remove this paper and throw it away so that nobody stuffs them or anything with paper ever again, because see how the paper is yellowed? That's why you don't leave newspaper in or leave things wrapped in newspaper for long periods of time. Even glass can be affected by newsprint over time, especially if it gets wet or is subject to temperature changes. Now, these are not in perfect shape, but they are real. They're made of sinew, and they are plains, I believe, Sioux. I'll have to do some verification, but that's what the person I bought it from and I both felt. The tongue is missing on this one, but hey, you know, they're really, really old, and I still think that they might be worth $150 or more. Also Native American are these two dolls here. Well, dolls, they're actually puppets. And this is where I get into a really interesting collection. This fellow worked for Jim Henson on the Muppet movie, and he's really into puppetry and marionettes. Now, the first thing he showed me when I decided to get this one was how to wind them so that they don't get all tangled up, because that's a huge problem with these and a reason I have always avoided buying them. Well, if I was doing this right and holding it properly, what he did was he simply wound the cord around in a circle so it can be unwound in a circle. I'm not going to do it because it's serving me a good purpose to keep it that way so I don't mess it up. Ooh, a little hard to juggle him. Anyhow, that's what you're supposed to do, and that's how you don't end up with a big tangled mess. This particular one on the left is by a company out of Kansas City that was very well known called Hazelle. 1950s and 60s were kind of their peak. The one on the right is paper mache. He's really cool. He's hand done. I'm judging by the fabric and the clothes that he might be 1930s or 40s, and because of that, I paid up for him, but I think he's really actually rather good. I think he could be worth 3 digits. I didn't pay a lot for Dopey. Dopey is good because he's Walt Disney Productions, and that's what you want. And Dopey is also the best of the dwarves to get because he seems to be the one that people key in on the most. They either want the whole collection or they just want Dopey, and because of that, he's worth a little more. I'd say around $30 retail. Now above, again, here's another wonderfully handmade set. They were done to be puppets. They don't have their strings and their attachments anymore, but look at the wonderful faces. These are WPA dolls, which was a government program to employ artists and writers and the like in the 1930s. They have all their original clothes. They have great expressiveness. just a very pleasant countenance, really. And I'm sure they told many a great story. So I was very excited to get those. Again, this is a one-of-a-kind thing. Also one of a kind is this mask. This one, I can't tell you the culture. I'm going to have to do some research on this. I think it's more modern in the polychrome, but I thought the expression was so interesting. They had a bunch on the wall, and this one and the older one were the two that I picked. Again, it seems to be cut properly where it could have been used. Even if it isn't going to be used, I still personally like the ones that are made in a way that respects the fact that these were made to be used, that they weren't just some toy or a piece of junk to sell a tourist when they came to town. And neither was this guy. This is the general. In Indonesia, in Bali, in China, and other parts of Asia, this one is Chinese, you see very lavish marionettes that are used to perform. I believe they also use them in parades. This guy has just got such incredible stitchery. It's something that somebody made by hand, you can tell, because everything is very uneven and it's just whatever they could do. And they did really well. Look at the dragon on the bottom. That is just so cool. I'm very excited to have this. And again, I think we're probably looking at something in the potentially $300 range. He's got all his flags. He's got his control stick. So this is just a really neat thing. And I'm very excited to bring such an interesting collection. So these came with records, and they even came with the words printed out for you. The words are, well, racial stereotype, absolutely, and so are the dolls. But these are puppets. They're called Talentoy. They were made by the F&B doll company under a different name, and they came with their original records, which you'll see here. Jambo the Jiver is the guy on the right here. And then this is Tunga from the Congo, who's a dancer. And this is what from the Talent Products Incorporated, but it was done again by F&B for them. Hours of Enchantment. We little people bring to children 6 to 60 a hobby with limitless possibilities for home entertainment, and we develop talent. We stimulate in their imagination. We create interest in rhythm, in music, in self-expression. We develop finger dexterity and powers of coordination, and you can make a puppet show of it. And so it was intended to be an educational toy. And all of the people here, puppets, you see on the cover, all signed their names. Now, Kilroy the Cop is another desirable one of this line, but these two are probably the best. They will appeal to black memorabilia collectors. And I have to say, I think that my customer who collects this for a museum up in Ohio will be interested if they don't already have it. So that's the reason I bought them. I like this guy too. This guy's name is McAwful the Scot. So see, they were pretty much degrading to everybody. This guy is a ventriloquist dummy, and he sells for a little over $100, I believe. He's got great Google eyes. He's 1960s. You see him from time to time. He's just generic enough that you can give him your own personality or his own personality. You know that the dummy always takes over the act. This is a very cute courting lamp, something off the track of what we've been looking at, but this one is 1930s and it works well. The light glows very nicely. It should be worth about $175 to $2.25. If it was a little racier or just a woman figure in abstract, it would be even more. Now, Hazelle's by the late 1960s realized what F&B and the Talent Products Company didn't realize in the 1949 edition, and that is that black people really prefer to be portrayed as the way that they actually look and live. And so that's why in 1967 this Hazelle line came out. These are hand puppets and they are called the minority line. I guess because they finally had a minority line. I guess that doesn't put too fine a point on it. And there are the entire family of 5 here. These go for $35 a piece, roughly. I haven't seen them before, and it's nice to have the whole set at once. You've got the baby and the bunting, you've got a boy and a girl, and mom and dad. And they're pretty cute. but maybe not as cute as the next thing I'm going to show you. Okay, maybe cute isn't the word, but stylish and really great. Yeah, I'll take that. This is very Art Deco in the bridge. This is a bridge lamp. The great part is I have not had one of these before, where the acro agate is the green, and in this case, not every case, it's the middle of daylight, so you'll just see a spot with my tiny little black light, but look, it all glows. And that's going to be really fun. You could put a black light in the shade and then actually activate it. But yeah, this is all going to glow bright green when you put a real black light on it. This is just my little test one on my keychain that I take to stores with me, because it's not as obnoxious as a big giant one and easier to carry. And even the base glows green. And it's a great base too. It's very nice, ornate, early Art Deco form. This should probably sell for somewhere in the $200 range plus. I was happy to pay $75 for it. It's probably a replacement shade, but it is correct enough for the period. And then the last item I got was this chip card table. Now, it's not in perfect condition. It may even be a marriage because I noticed differences in the pattern, but this is all pierce carved. This was made in India. It's a great size to take to a show like this. It's just fancy and ornate enough for the Palm Beach crowd who likes fancy and ornate. Some of them really do. And it's gilded, and it is old. It's had a few little repairs. It's not in perfect condition, but I think this is going to be surprisingly popular, and it's going to look great on a table with something fancy on it. And, well, I'll have fancy things at this show too. So here's some other things I got in Florida at the last minute. I really thought these were neat. These are by a fellow named Biggle. In the first decade of the 1900s, he did these Biggle's Farm Library books, and I think they sell for about $15 a piece, but he's got this one all about beekeeping, the Biggle Bee book, and this cost a whole dollar when it was new in 1909. This one is the garden book, and this tells you how to grow vegetables, small fruits, and flowers for pleasure and profit. This one is about horses. This is from 1904. Most people did not have a car in 1904 unless they were very wealthy, so knowing how to take care of your horses was important. If you wanted to get anywhere, if you didn't live in a city or town, you had to have a horse. Or really, really strong legs. And then this one is the orchard book. Fruit and orchard gleanings from bough to basket. So they're very cute. I think someone's going to really enjoy those. Other paper stuff. Well, these are kind of funny. They're specifically for Florida because that's Tiger Woods. And the Jupiter colony where he lives now is home to a lot of different golfers. And that's not far from West Palm Beach, so I suspect there will be interest there. They've retired now, but there used to be an antique dealer who sold nothing but vintage golf there. So I have a feeling we'll find a buyer for that. Here is a neat paperweight. This one is by a guy from Canada named Robert Held. And he came and did stuff at a glass show that we held in Centralia, Washington. Gosh, it's been almost 30 years now, I think. I was very, very new to the business then. He did really nice work. At the time, these were brand new, and now they are vintage because, well, time marches on. And this is a neat scramble with the bubbles, good colors. I think that will be something someone will appreciate. Also in art glass, we have this piece here. Now, this one is not marked. It appears from the way it's polished to be European, probably one of the Scandinavian companies. It is a very nice lavender purpley color in natural light, but when we take it to non-natural light, it turns more of a blue color. This is Alexandrite glass, just like the material, the mineral Alexandrite. The Alexandrite glass changes color depending on what the light source is, and so it's another fun thing to collect along the lines of uranium glass for those of you who are intrigued by color changing properties in glass. A little dexterity game here I thought was cute. I like having little things like this in cases, and it's got a neat little calf on it because it's advertising the Peebles Super Calf Kit, probably from the 1950s. And look, I actually solved it. I got it the first time. This is from a Chevrolet. This snowflake tin is Trifari, and I do have a lot of call for Trifari in West Palm Beach. You can see the mark with the crown there. I have a couple of different dealers, including one from Italy and one from Germany, who often come and look for Trifari because they're a name that's known there. This little tie tack here is just cute. It's got a miniature oyster and pearl from Swank from the 1950s. These are brass. They're William Shakespeare, but they are by J.B. That is a name to look for, so I was happy to get these. It also shows his various plays, some of them on the back. The bird here is one of the Danish companies that is not Royal Copenhagen or Bing & Grondal, and you can see the mark right there. But there's a lot of birders who come to Florida in the wintertime, and they like to collect the figures as well as go look for the birds in the wild there. And it was holding down some military scrip. This is stuff that was given out when GIs were in places where the local currency had failed or no longer existed or were too war-torn to be used or had to be left with the local citizenry, so the military would create these payment certificates so that you actually could trade at the Navy Exchange. The tile here is an Irish company, hand-painted. I like the apples. This is 1980s, but a lot of people are collecting these 1980s artist tiles now. And this one's R&J Forrester, handmade in Ireland. And you can see it's got a very weak back stamp here. So if you don't have that foil label on top, look for the other marking, because Forrester does sell for a little more than a run-of-the-mill. Now, Yvonne at Yvonne Thrifty Rich has been talking all about how Raku is coming back. I remember it in the 90s when it was new. It's a type of ceramic reduction, like a stoneware, but you would get this metallic to come out, depending on the chemicals used. And so that gives you the design, and they're very free-form. No two are alike. This one has an artist signature. There's just starting to be scholarship on this, and I will have to look and see what the significance of this is in terms of the artist, but Raku is selling well, so I'm curious to see how that does. These are neat, and they're perfect for Florida because they show the trajectory of the Apollo moon landing. It breaks into the lunar orbit. They land in the Sea of Tranquility, not in the Ocean of Storms. Did you know the moon has all these oceans and seas even though there's no water on it? And then that shows the return flight back to Earth. This sort of stuff just does really well in Florida because there's so many people connected to NASA there, so that's where a lot of the collectors are. Don Quixote here, carved by an artisan in Spain. It's got a nice mark. It's 1960s, just a cute piece. A lot of people like Don Quixote, and particularly in Florida, that's a good motif. We have the early post-war Army and Navy needle book made in Japan. It's got all its needles and the dub of peace on the back. This piece didn't cost much. It's Italian, even though it's not marked as such. I picked it up just on the odd chance that maybe this design will turn out to be Vitosi or somebody of merit and import. It's cute, and it was very inexpensive regardless. This piece is by a Minnesota artist named Warren McKenzie, who is known to modernists in that region. And there is the M in the square mark. A lot of people mistake these for Japanese, but that mark is Warren McKenzie, so that's something you can look for, especially if you're in Minnesota, where he's best known. I got another one of these puppets, and I think it's very cute. This one's Indonesian, and it's got nice sequins, it's got the jewels, it's got age. This should date back to about the 1950s or 60s. Reverse paintings may look forlorn, but they are Peruvian, and they're early souvenir pieces. You see it was purchased in October 1931. You have the Peruvian weaver here, and then the fellow here And I just thought those were interesting enough, and I do find that there are some Latin collectors in Florida who like things from South America and understand them better than a lot of my collectors in the rest of the United States. Speaking of Florida, if you're a football fan, this isn't wildly old, but this is something that I suspect somebody there will really like. It's a book with a good history. Urban Meyer wrote the foreword. The decanter is Blanco, and I really like that particular shade. It's almost to the chestnut brown, which was a color they didn't make for very long. This is a Wayne Husted design from the late 50s or early 60s. And then, yes, I did get some clear glass. You know, I talk a lot about, well, clear glass isn't a big seller, but there are exceptions. The Lismore and Marquis patterns in Waterford are what we see more often, and this is one of those. But it is marked Waterford, and these should sell, and West Palm Beach is a good place to sell this sort of thing. There are people who have more elegant tastes there. And this is a mustard pot, also with the Waterford label. This will sell immediately to my friend who does the antique advertising. In fact, I've already told him about it. But this is Cook's Brewery in Evansville, Indiana. This is a pre-prohibition souvenir glass from going to the brewery and having a snort while you were there. So that's kind of neat. The Orifore's candle holder is a basic piece, but they always seem to sell because they're nice quality and they've got a good look, especially when they're lit. This older piece here is Candlewick. It's unusual to find Imperial's Candlewick with the etching, however, and that's what made this a little more special. This is an ice bucket. It needs a good bath, but it's worth about $35 even nowadays because of the etching. So don't overlook clear Depression and Elegant era glass just because they're clear. There are still collectors for some of these pieces, especially because the design on the outside really gives it some life. These look like the very expensive Lalique stems. They are not. They are a knockoff, but they're still a nice toasting set, and I am selling at West Palm Beach over New Year's, so toasting might be just up somebody's alley. This set here is 1980s. It's got this applied threading and then the staining in gold and purple, which is in pretty good shape. It's not absolutely perfect, but it's the whole set with 4 tumblers. It's similar to the Reuven glass that was made in that period. I do not know who the maker of this particular set is, and I'll bet somebody out there does. So if you do, leave me a comment. Well, it sure was fun showing you the Florida finds that I'm bringing to West Palm Beach, and that's not all of them. I actually have merchandise already set aside in Florida, and 3 more people to see with merchandise on the way. So by the time I get to West Palm Beach, there'll be a whole lot of things that you haven't seen, but at least this is a preview for those who may be coming to the show or those who are not able to get there, and you at least get to enjoy some of what I found. And who knows, if it doesn't sell, well, shoot me an email. If it's still available, I'd be glad to ship to you. So thank you so much for joining, and check out my social media links in the description. We've got memberships available with various things. In fact, the member bonus video should be coming out very soon for the level 2 members. You get to see that first, early access. That's one of the benefits. And we also have finally figured out how to update the credits. YouTube finally has made it easier for us, so for those of you who are members on either level 1 or 2, we'll be able to keep that up better. And we sure appreciate your support. It does let us provide extra content. Check out the website, theantiquenomad.com, for appraisal information and other fun things there. So we'll see you again soon, and probably from Florida. Bye-bye now. Thanks for joining me again in the fun and fascinating antique community, here where online meets the real world. Please click the subscribe button below, click the bell to be notified when new videos upload, leave a comment below, and hit thumbs up to like this video. Links to our online social media and our items for sale are in the description. This is George at The Antique Nomad. Bye for now.